this working?
Yeah.
Hi. Is this working? Yeah. Okay, cool. Hi. So my name is Belén. I'm from Cloudreach. Just before I get into the presentation, I wanted to give you an overview as to what we do, because it will give you context around my presentation. I head up the talent team at Cloudreach. Actually, Amy and Paul are here from my team, so no pressure from me today. And I've been at Cloudreach for about 2.5 years. When I started, there was around 200 people, and today there's around 800 or so. So over the last couple of years, we've grown quite a lot. It's a bit more quiet now, but we've gone through great periods of growth. And through this period of growth, we had some challenges. And what I want to talk about today is about challenges that we had specifically around interview processes. We're a cloud consultancy, cloud services provider, and the type of tech talent that we look for is, I'm assuming, the same as you're looking for talent that is very hot in the market. There's a talent war out there, and we have to fight with potentially some of you here. I know there is someone from our competitors here as well, and it's tough, but we really enjoy it, especially in times of growth. So, as I said, I'm going to speak specifically about the interview processes and challenges. So, for us, when I started, and just about maybe like until a year ago, we had a very unstructured way of interviewing. We didn't have any sort of guidance for the interviewers, just questions, but there was not really anything to measure people against objectively. It was very subjective. And this really produced some challenges in terms of salaries, offering people the right salaries, actually making an offer or not, because some people didn't agree, and probably we disagreed. There was a disagreement as well on skills required to perform the job. We're a global company, and different regions had different interview processes, which sometimes it's fine because you need to adapt to regions. But in this case, it was, as an example, in London we had three interviews at face-to-face stage for any given role, and in France they just decided to have their own 2 extra ones. That it was not really adding anything, but they really felt strongly about it. So, as another example, in the US, at Cloudreach, culture is very important to us, and we have a specific interview is about cultural fit. In the US, because their lead times when they were selling our consultancy services were and are still very short, hiring people was even faster than anywhere else, and sometimes they just decided to skip some interviews. So that was not great either. So we were facing a lot of challenges, and these challenges were affecting sometimes the quality of the people that we were getting in. It was affecting the way, as a talent team, we were working, etc., etc. So, and then last year as well, we introduced some levels into the company. The company historically has been quite flat, I guess, as any other startup that all of a sudden grows a lot. We introduced some levels, but these levels were not actually replicated into the interview process. So we also had to take that into consideration. So, given all these challenges, we obviously didn't want to sit around and just let it happen. So we took some action, and we tried to support the business as best as we could. We decided to restructure existing interview processes, build new interview processes, and we decided to follow a semi-structured interview approach. On the next slide, I will explain what the different sort of interview structures could be, and the reason as to why we chose this one. We wanted to align our interview processes to our roles and levels. I wanted to make sure that different regions were streamlined. We also did a lot of interviewer training in the past, but we had to revamp all these interview trainings as well. So why did we choose a semi-structure interview approach, and what does this mean? So you can see, well, I can see the format's been a bit screwed up here, but so you can see there's a structure, semi-structure, unstructured. It's not rocket science. I guess the word says it all. Basically, unstructured, free-flowing conversation, structured. It is very much you follow the questions that you have, and there is not room for movement. And there's a middle ground there, which is what we decided to go for. So with this approach, we basically provide the questions, but we leave room for the interviewers to ask their own probing questions. They can adjust any sort of like level of language as well, but as well as in the structured interview, there is a clear objective and focus for each interview, and it can be measurable, which is what we wanted to do. And in terms of, for us, it was, well, I guess for the interviews and for the company, it's been a change. It's been a good change. The feedback that we've been getting has been great. But the biggest challenge that we've had from moving from one way of working to the other is the change management piece. We did all of this together with all the interviewers and the different departments. We didn't do this in silos or anything. So I think that was very, very important. In terms of the benefits, so for us, as I mentioned before, we really wanted to have a better quality of hires. It was not that there was a certain amount of people that obviously were not passing probation like in any other business, but by moving to this way of working, it's been reduced at around 50%. So I guess it's a good number. Specifically for technical interviews. For us it's been more predictive. There's been also, we are more legally protected, which perhaps in Europe is not that of a big thing, but in the US it is, and you can get sued for different things. So this actually helped us a lot to be on the safe side. It's very objective. We're removing any sort of subjectivity that we had before, because we have a clear criteria of what we're evaluating against. And I will give an example later. And obviously, candidate experience is very important, and the way people perceive our companies, it's a big decision in terms of whether or not they accept an offer or not. And obviously, market reputation. We all know what Glassdoor is like, and people can talk about their interviews and their experience. So obviously, that's very, very important for everyone. So now I wanted to, obviously, I don't have very, very long today, and I wanted to give some context and why we've done this and how we've done it. But I wanted to also give you an insight as to the interview process design methodology that we are following in order to improve any existing interview processes, as well as building new ones. So we've divided this internally in 5 steps. Obviously, you can have as many as you like, and you can call them whatever you like, but this is working very, very, very well for us. Basically, in about 5 weeks, you can improve or get a new interview process done. done. However, it might take slightly longer depending on your stakeholders and how ready the business is to move from X to Y. So the first 2 weeks, we usually do a discovery phase. We understand the current state of the interview process, and we identify current challenges. So the challenges that I explained before are the common challenges that we're seeing in our company, but in your company, you might probably have different ones. We identify potential improvements, and we select a couple of interview sponsors, and this is key. You cannot do this in silo. You need to partner up with the different departments, with the different business units, and selecting the key people to help you with this interview process is going to get the rest of the department to buy into it. As an example, the first interview process we decided to revamp, it was for our DevOps engineers. That accounts for about perhaps 40-50% of our company. And it was the most screwed up interview process that we had. It was the one that had most regional differences. So it was the hardest one. We could have chosen that one the last, but we decided to go for that one the first. And we selected regional sponsors. We selected one in France, we selected in the UK, we selected another one in Amsterdam, and we selected a couple in the US. That was very important because they were going to be the voice of that region. And we got together, we had some discussions. It was very interesting to see how someone thought networking was super, super important, and someone else was like, no, that's not important at all, nearly. So we had good discussions, and then from there, we follow the other steps. So step 2, it's a very simple proof of concept. This is based on phase 1, is to provide a high-level design of the improved interview framework. So this is our recommendation after we looked into step 1. Our recommendation takes into consideration, obviously, everyone's thoughts. And then we move into the design phase alongside stakeholders and the different departments. And here is where the very, very hard and detailed work starts. So we have a detailed interview framework which starts from breaking down each role. So you have a role description. What we do there, we break it down into the skills that we need, so categories, and then what are we measuring against. But we do this for each interview. And we decide how many interviews and what the focus of the interview is based on what we're looking for in the role description. And also depending on people's input as well. So as an example, a DevOps engineer, you might have some sort of skill sets which are technical and soft skills. Then we'll have a technical interview, then we'll have a soft skills interview, and depending on the seniority of the role or the different types of skill sets, we might have 1 interview, 2 interviews, or whatever. And then we have a very detailed framework for the whole process, but for each specific interview. And then, very important to document all of this, share it with all the interview sponsors, and keep working together on the design phase. Then, implementation phase. I mean, I just put about 3 months, but it can be anything you like. Then we implement and we roll out the interview process. And we do this on a pilot basis, and we call it, well, I think pilot is a key word, at least in our company. If we say, hey, here it is, new interview process, all of this change, with all of the change that we already have in the company, it is going to be quite difficult for everyone to digest. So just by saying pilot, people think, all right, fine, I can continue giving feedback, this is going to improve, and everything works quite well. So this is how we call it pilot, and everyone was quite happy. They've been giving feedback, we've changed a couple of things, and this interview process right now is completely rolled out, for example, and it's going quite well. Then interviewers training is not only about the standard interview training that we provide, it's about a more detailed interview training based on all the scoring systems that we have and how objectively we measure people. It's a different way of working. So yeah, it requires some extra interview training. So with the help of our growth and development team, we've rolled out some other training here, and the sponsors are acting as the teachers, let's say, and then obviously support ongoing. So these are the 5 steps that we are following. It's probably quite a lot to take in, but I'll just give you a real example of a specific interview. So this is for the DevOps engineer type role. And this is for our first competency interview, the first technical interview. So what we did here, on our job descriptions, we don't have all the categories that we need to measure people against. We have the typical that everyone has on a job description, but there's much more behind that. So we got together with the sponsors, we had a discussion, and we agree on the categories first. And then we had to agree on the weight that these categories had. There were more categories, I just took some stuff out so it's more clear. And it came out that public cloud and programming were the highest scoring categories out of all. Then there are different levels, 3 levels, and as you can see, there's different weight for each level. I mean, you can do this any other way. You can have the same sort of scoring, we had different scoring, and we have a minimum target. It's actually working quite well. People who usually score less than 21 are usually quite junior and not great for our business as we are right now. Then 58, 80, 88. So as you can see, there's a category and there is core, senior, principal, and then next to each number there will be a description of what that weight would mean during the interview. So how people get scored during the interviews, we have the questions aligned to each category, and then depending on the answers that they've given to this category, the interviewers were assigned a score. And then depending on the score that they've had, it sits in one or the other. Probably sounds a bit complex, it's easier than it seems, and I have more examples. If anyone wants to see anything else, I can send more examples over. But for us, it's been great. It's been working quite well. We've improved the quality of hire and the retention as well. So yeah, this is the example, and I think I'm running out of time, so I think I'm just gonna leave it there.
We've got time for